Hey, welcome out to the backyard on this sunny day. There's a gentle breeze blowing today. Guys, this is a beautiful day. We got weather in other parts of the country that are devastating for some folks, and our heart goes out to them people, and we hope that everybody's fine. What are we going to do for you today? We're going to do some chicken. I guess technically you might say this chicken is poached. This chicken is going to be cooked in a butter bath. So yes, this is not a dietetic meal by any means, depending on the butter you use. But butter I'm using, it's not going to be good for you, but it's going to be wonderful and it's going to taste great. So folks, we're going to get started here and get some things done. But first, this little device right here was given to me by a friend, Les Ingram. I believe this is a biscuit cutter that you roll out on your biscuit, but I'm not 100% sure. So those of you that are out there that see this thing might know what it was. Message me and let me know. I have no idea what that is. I haven't cleaned it up, but I'm going to find a use for it. I guarantee you that. I'm not going to let something go to waste that somebody gives me. So let's get started with this chicken. And why have I been doing some chicken more than beef here lately? Chicken is more affordable for folks. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with beef, and I love a great beef steak, big bone-in ribeye, but you're going to pay a lot of money for that. A lot of families today can't afford that on a routine basis. So we've been doing a little chicken, been doing some other stuff that might be a little more affordable for folks to cook. We're going to do that in a skillet that's probably larger than we need. And I call this a skillet. I'm not too sure if it's technically a skillet, but I use it as a skillet. This is about 17 inch, I believe, 18 inch, something like that. We're going to put that in there. To this, we're going to add 4 sticks of butter. Now, folks, this is salted butter. All right, so we're going to be careful. In fact, I don't believe I'm going to put any salt in this with this salted butter. 4 sticks. And culinary people that know better might tell me, Jeff, technically this is not poached. But for a backyard chuck wagon cook, we're going to call it poached. We got that butter off in there. To that butter, we're going to add our chicken breast. Now, we've taken this chicken breast. They were pretty big. We butterflied them and then cut that butterfly in half to make 3 pieces of chicken breast. These are about a 1/2 inch. We may have to add a little butter to it because we want the butter to cover all of the chicken. The last thing we're going to add to that, well, not the last thing, but almost the last thing, is some tomatoes. Now, I have 5 tomatoes here on the vine. You don't have to have the vine on there. You can use regular tomatoes. You can probably do canned tomatoes in this if you wanted to, but you can do any tomatoes. I'm kind of like plating a little bit, so the vine to me adds a little pizzazz to the dish. Now, what do we want to do with these before we put them in? Is simply turn them over and poke a small hole in the bottom. Just one good shot in the bottom side as close as you can get. I'm going to set that off in the middle here. My box don't blow away, and it is sure trying, folks. Let's weight that thing down a little bit. Now, it just took a run. All right, now, this is where the recipe, typically for the major ingredients, this is where the recipe stops. You know me. I'm going to add a little jalapeno to that. I'm going to chop up about a half, slice up about a half of a jalapeno, fairly thin, just a little, okay? And like I say, about a half of a jalapeno with the seeds. You can leave this out. If you don't want it, you can. Get one more piece. And there we go. Now, to that, we're going to add some sweet basil. Let me give this a dusting. Now, we can use dry ingredients in this, folks, because this is going to cook for a long time. And dry ingredients, sometimes in a quick dish, stay a little grainy to me. I'm going to put in here what I'm going to think is about a couple of teaspoons of basil. This is a sweet basil. Again, it's a dried, as you notice, because I got it out of there. And a little bit of thyme. Probably not as much thyme as we do the basil. Probably about a teaspoon of thyme. And we had salted butter, so no salt. We're going to add about a teaspoon of black pepper, maybe a little bit more. All right, we got to cook this slow because we're going to poach it. We're going to go in the indirect side of the smoker here. We're going to set this whole thing off in there. We're going to cover it up, and we're going to let it go. And while that goes, I'm going to kind of clean up my mess so I'm a little more presentable to you today. Again, if you know what this deal Les gave me is, let me know. We'll be back shortly. Hey, everybody. I'm going to give this a little check. Hadn't been on here very long, so we're just going to give it a little bit of a stir around. I'm going to zoom in here a minute and let you kind of see what we've got going on in here. But kind of had to do a little leveling on our skillet. We're outside. You kind of got to be mindful of a lot of things like that when you're cooking outside. Sometimes you got to play around with what you got and make it work. You think as much as I cook out here, my barbecue pit would be level. It's not. There you go, folks. A little view of what we got. Butter hadn't quite fully melted yet. I haven't been here on very long. I'm going to set this down here. Maybe you can still see what I got. I'm going to flip this chicken breast over. Kind of stir up our butter mixture. We may have to add a little more butter as this thing goes along. But we're going to go. I'm going to just keep this going fairly slow for a good while. Folks, we've been going in here about 15 minutes maybe. If the thermometer is correct, it's about 300. It's kind of be on the high side of where we want to be. I'm going to add some more butter to this. I'm going to add about 4 sticks. Now, the reason I'm adding butter, my pan is pretty big. If you're doing this in a smaller pan, you probably don't have to have that much butter. We want this chicken to be as submerged as possible in the butter in order to get the flavor in there. This butter that I'm adding right here is unsalted. The first butter was salted, but I don't want to get too much salt into this dish. We're a little hot on that side over there too. We want this to go slow and easy. Flip our chicken over. Folks, we want to thank everybody for all that they do in watching us. We're not professional. We don't aim to be. We're just out here having fun and hoping you're having fun along with us. Just a little rotate. Yes, it's not a Dutch oven, folks, but the heat is coming from this direction from our firebox. If we were over here, maybe we would have more uniform heat, but I am a little further this way, just where I prefer to cook on this particular pit. We're going to close it up, come back and see what we got. Taking a peek, folks. While this chicken's going on, we want to go this fairly slow. I would say keep it around 250 or so. This is one dish that you may want to use a thermometer. I may want to use a thermometer to check. It's not grilled chicken or any type of chicken like that. This is a new process that I'm trying to get comfortable with doing. I've done this a few times, but still learning some things about this and cooking out this outside. I've done it in the house many times in the oven where you have control, but out here you don't have control. Depending on the direction of the wind, if the wind is blowing this direction, this is the inlet air to my smoker. So if the wind is blowing kind of this direction at one of these angles, I have to watch. Otherwise, I get air blowing into my firebox, which has a tendency to increase my heat. So I have to keep this pinched off to maintain what we're doing right now. And if these thermometers are correct, and I don't know if they are, this says 250, and that's a little, I can't even read that one. These are about 200. So I think generally I'm in the right place where I need to be. Folks, I've mentioned this before. We doing a few special dinners with Sullivan Creek Ranch in northern Alabama. They're in outside of Coleman, Alabama. These events are selling out, folks. They've limited this to 20 people per night. So far, there's 3 of them scheduled, and they'll set me up in different places around the ranch. I plan on having a different menu every night, and it is more a blend between fancy dining and chuck wagon. The words that they use to describe this is rustic refinement. I'm going to cook on my chuck wagon conventional ways, but the little tables they're going to have set up in the pasture for you to eat are white tablecloths. You actually got a waiter to bring you the food. So it is a blend between chuck wagon and a dining room. So come on out, check them out on their website. I'd love to see you. If these take off like they're appearing to, there'll be more scheduled in the fall. So back to what we're doing. Let's take a peek. Yeah, we're coming along fairly good, folks. Again, this is a slow process. It's not a speedy dish. So we're going to pop back in here in a minute so that we don't bore you rambling on. Hey, folks. I hope you can see that fairly good. The bright light on part and shadows in the other. This dish is just about ready. You can see how the peeling is cracked on there. Some of that juice of the tomatoes has leaked out into this juice, and the butter's almost turned to a brown butter type sauce. Our chicken is done, so we're just about ready to pull this off. Hey folks, how's this look to you for something different? Obviously my skillet's a lot larger than it needs to be. The skillet that I wanted to use needs a little work, so I chose to use this one in place of it. A lot of people are going to comment that you use liquid in cast iron. Again, this was fairly slow cooked, but butter is fat. You just need to be careful how you clean this. When you clean a Dutch oven, I don't use soap. Uh, I use hot water. Get your cast hot, put hot water in there, a little salt if you need an abrasive, a wooden spatula if you need to scrape a little bit. But heat does wonders as far as the cast iron, folks. And I know the soaps today are maybe a little more gentle. A lot of people do use soap. You won't completely kill your cast iron, but it's just something I don't prefer to do. Soaps back in the day were lye, and they're really harsh soaps. And they were really, really hard on cast iron. I think today things are a little bit different. But again, I prefer not to use soap at all, and I encourage people not to use soap. So folks, how does that look to you? Folks, as always, we're going to take a little taste. We did not bring a fork out here. We're going to use a spoon. Look how easy that chicken come apart. Let's see how soft those tomatoes are. Maybe a little warm. Folks, I can't describe how good that is. There is a richness from the butter, a depth of flavor, a super scrumptious, luxurious type texture to this chicken. This way of cooking and this method with fish and chicken and a couple other things is starting to become one of my favorite ways to cook. Dishes that are not typical and are very unique. And this is simple and easy. You can put it in your oven at home and walk off and leave it. Do whatever you need to do when you get home. Come back later and you've got a decent dish. Folks, as we tell you at the end of every video, enjoy your food.